Elvis was performing Love Me Tender in Vegas when a pregnant woman jumped on stage and screamed, "This is your baby." Elvis dropped the microphone and talked with the woman on stage for 10 minutes. What he said during that conversation shocked 20,000 people and changed Elvis's life forever. It was March 15, 1974, at the Las Vegas Hilton, and Elvis was in the middle of what many considered to be one of his most passionate performances of the year. The crowd of nearly 20,000 people had been electrified by his opening numbers, and now he was settling into the slower, more intimate part of his set with Love Me Tender, a song that always seemed to bring out the most vulnerable side of the king of rock and roll. Elvis had just reached the chorus, his voice floating across the packed arena with that distinctive tenderness that had made the song a classic, when something unprecedented happened. A woman in the third row suddenly stood up, placed her hands protectively over her visibly pregnant belly, and began pushing her way toward the stage with a determination that caught everyone off guard. The security guards positioned around the stage perimeter initially moved to intercept her, assuming she was just an overly enthusiastic fan trying to get closer to Elvis. But there was something different about this woman's demeanor, an urgency and desperation that went far beyond typical fan excitement. She wasn't screaming Elvis's name or reaching out to touch him like most stage rushers. Instead, she moved with the focused intensity of someone on a mission. Before we dive deeper into this incredible moment that would become one of the most talked about incidents in Elvis's entire career, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell. What you're about to learn reveals a side of Elvis that few people ever witnessed. As the woman reached the edge of the stage, she managed to evade the security guards and, with surprising agility for someone in her condition, pulled herself up onto the platform. The band continued playing for a few more beats, unsure of what was happening, but Elvis immediately stopped singing and held up his hand to signal them to stop as well. The arena fell into a stunned silence as 20,000 people watched this pregnant woman walk directly toward the king of rock and roll. What happened next would be discussed and debated for decades. Instead of having security remove the woman, Elvis set down his microphone stand and took several steps toward her, his expression shifting from surprise to something that looked almost like recognition. The woman, who appeared to be in her late 20s with shoulder-length brown hair and wearing a simple blue dress that accentuated her pregnancy, stopped about 3 feet from Elvis and placed both hands on her belly. "Elvis," she said, her voice carrying clearly through the arena's sound system, because she was close enough to his microphone, "This is your baby." The words hung in the air like a thunderclap, and the collective gasp from the audience was audible even in the vast space of the Las Vegas Hilton. For a moment that seemed to last forever, Elvis and the woman simply stared at each other while 20,000 people held their breath, waiting to see how the king would respond to this most public and shocking of accusations. What Elvis did next surprised everyone in the arena, including his own band and security team. Instead of denying the woman's claim or having her removed from the stage, Elvis walked closer to her and, in a gesture that would be remembered by everyone present, gently placed his hand on her shoulder and asked, loud enough for the microphone to pick up, "What's your name, darling?" The woman, who had been trembling since she climbed onto the stage, seemed to steady herself at Elvis's gentle tone. "My name is Sandra Mitchell," she replied, her voice shaking but clear. "We met in Memphis last year after your concert at the Mid-South Coliseum. You probably don't remember, but we spent 3 days together, and this baby is the result of that time." The arena remained completely silent, with even the usual background noise of a large crowd absent as everyone strained to hear this extraordinary conversation. Elvis listened to Sandra's words without interruption, his expression thoughtful and serious rather than angry or defensive. When she finished speaking, he nodded slowly and said, "I remember you, Sandra. I remember those 3 days." The admission sent another wave of shock through the audience. This wasn't a denial or a dismissal. Elvis was acknowledging that he knew this woman and that her story had some basis in reality. The implications of this public admission were staggering, not just for Elvis's personal life, but for his career and public image. Here was America's most famous entertainer, standing on stage in front of thousands of people, essentially confirming that he had had a relationship with a fan that had resulted in a pregnancy. What made the moment even more remarkable was Elvis's demeanor throughout this exchange. Rather than appearing flustered or angry, he seemed calm and genuinely concerned about Sandra's welfare. He asked her how she was feeling, whether she was taking care of herself, and if she needed any medical attention. His questions were delivered with the same gentle tone he used when speaking to fans during his concerts, but there was an intimacy and personal concern that went far beyond his usual stage patter. Sandra's responses revealed that she had been trying to contact Elvis for months through official channels, but had been unable to get past his management team and security personnel. She had attended several of his Las Vegas shows, hoping for an opportunity to speak with him privately, but tonight she had finally decided that a public confrontation was her only option. She was 7 months pregnant and needed to know whether Elvis would acknowledge the child and provide support. The conversation continued for what felt like hours, but was actually about 10 minutes, during which Elvis asked Sandra detailed questions about her pregnancy, her living situation, and her needs. He also apologized to the audience for the interruption, explaining that sometimes personal matters had to take precedence over entertainment. The crowd, rather than becoming restless or demanding that the show continue, seemed mesmerized by this unprecedented glimpse into Elvis's private life. What Elvis did next would fundamentally change how he approached his relationships with fans and his responsibilities as a public figure. With 20,000 people watching and listening, Elvis made a decision that shocked everyone present and established a new standard for how celebrities might handle personal crises in public. "Sandra," Elvis said, his voice carrying clearly through the arena's sound system, "I want you to know that I take full responsibility for this situation. If this baby is mine, then I will make sure both of you are taken care of. But we need to handle this properly, with doctors and lawyers and people who can help us figure out the right way forward." The crowd erupted in applause, not the wild screaming typical of Elvis concerts, but the kind of respectful, emotional applause usually reserved for truly meaningful moments. Even his band members, who had worked with Elvis for years and thought they had seen everything, were visibly moved by his response. Joe Esposito, Elvis's road manager, later said that this was the moment he truly understood the depth of Elvis's character and his genuine care for other people. Elvis then did something that no one expected. He asked Sandra if she would be comfortable staying for the rest of the show as his personal guest, explaining that he wanted to finish the concert for the people who had paid to see him perform, but that he also wanted to make sure she was safe and comfortable. When Sandra agreed, Elvis had his security team escort her to a VIP seating area and assigned a personal assistant to stay with her throughout the evening. But the most remarkable part of Elvis's response was what he did when he returned to the microphone. Instead of trying to minimize what had just happened or returning to his planned set list, Elvis addressed the audience directly about the broader implications of what they had all witnessed. He spoke about the responsibilities that come with fame and success, about the importance of treating all people with dignity and respect, and about the fact that celebrities are human beings who make mistakes and must be held accountable for their actions. "Ladies and gentlemen," Elvis said, his voice carrying a gravity that was unusual even for his more serious moments, "what you've just seen here tonight is real life intruding on entertainment. This young woman has shown tremendous courage in coming forward, and she deserves our respect and support regardless of what the future holds. I hope that all of you will remember this moment not as a scandal or a source of gossip, but as an example of how we should all strive to treat each other with honesty and compassion." The speech, which lasted about 5 minutes, was interrupted several times by applause and even some calls of support from audience members. When Elvis finished speaking, the arena fell silent again, but this time it was a comfortable, respectful silence, as if the entire crowd was processing the significance of what they had experienced. Elvis then made another unexpected decision. Instead of continuing with his planned set list, he asked the audience what songs they would like to hear, explaining that he wanted the rest of the evening to be a celebration of music and community rather than a typical concert performance. The requests came from all over the arena, and Elvis spent the next 2 hours performing an eclectic mix of his hits, gospel songs, and even some requests he had never performed live before. The immediate aftermath of the Sandra Mitchell incident was unlike anything Elvis or his management team had ever experienced. Within hours of the concert's conclusion, news of what had happened was spreading across the country through radio reports, telephone calls, and word of mouth from audience members who couldn't wait to share what they had witnessed. By the next morning, every major newspaper and television network in America was trying to get more information about the pregnant woman who had confronted Elvis on stage and his remarkable response to her claims. The story was particularly compelling because it combined elements that fascinated the public: celebrity scandal, unexpected compassion, and a very human moment that had played out in front of thousands of witnesses. What made the story even more remarkable was how Elvis chose to handle the media attention. Instead of issuing denials or having his representatives dismiss Sandra's claims, Elvis arranged for a press conference the following day where he would address the situation directly. This was highly unusual for Elvis, who typically avoided press conferences and preferred to communicate with the public through his music and performances. At the press conference, Elvis was accompanied by Sandra Mitchell and his personal physician, Dr. George Nikopoulos. Elvis explained that he had arranged for Sandra to receive comprehensive medical care to ensure her health and the health of her baby, and that he had also retained legal counsel to help establish paternity and work out appropriate support arrangements regardless of the test results. "I want to be clear about something," Elvis told the assembled reporters. "Whether or not I am the biological father of Sandra's child, I am committed to making sure that both she and the baby have everything they need. Sandra showed tremendous courage in coming forward, and she deserves our support, not our judgment." The press conference also revealed some details about Elvis's relationship with Sandra that helped explain how their brief encounter had led to the current situation. Sandra described meeting Elvis after his Memphis concert in April 1973, when she had won a backstage pass through a radio contest. She'd been going through a difficult divorce at the time and was feeling particularly vulnerable when she met Elvis, who was also dealing with personal challenges related to his separation from Priscilla. According to both Sandra and Elvis, they had spent 3 days together in Memphis, during which Elvis had been kind, supportive, and genuinely interested in her life and her problems. Sandra emphasized that Elvis had never made her any promises about a future relationship, and she had not initially intended to contact him about the pregnancy. It was only when she began experiencing financial difficulties related to her divorce and medical expenses that she had decided to reach out for help. The story took an even more interesting turn when Dr. Nikopoulos announced that preliminary blood tests suggested a high probability that Elvis was indeed the father of Sandra's unborn child. More definitive testing would have to wait until after the baby was born, but the initial results were compelling enough that Elvis had decided to proceed as if he were the father. Have you ever witnessed a moment when someone's true character was revealed under pressure? Elvis's response to Sandra Mitchell's confrontation showed a side of him that many people had never seen before. The Sandra Mitchell incident marked a turning point in Elvis's career and personal life that would influence his behavior and public image for the remaining 3 years of his life. The way he had handled the situation earned him respect from people who had previously viewed him as just another self-indulgent celebrity, while also inspiring other public figures to take more responsibility for their personal relationships and their impact on others. In the months following the incident, Elvis made several significant changes to how he conducted his personal and professional life. He established a formal process for fans who needed to contact him about serious personal matters, ensuring that legitimate concerns wouldn't be lost in the massive volume of fan mail he received daily. He also began incorporating more direct interaction with his audiences during concerts, often taking time to acknowledge individuals in the crowd and occasionally inviting fans on stage to share their stories. Most significantly, Elvis began using his platform to speak out about issues related to personal responsibility, the treatment of women, and the obligations that come with fame and success. He gave several interviews in which he discussed the importance of celebrities being held accountable for their actions and the need for the entertainment industry to support people who had been affected by celebrity behavior. The story of Sandra's pregnancy had a happy ending that further enhanced Elvis's reputation for compassion and responsibility. She gave birth to a healthy baby boy in August 1974, and DNA testing confirmed that Elvis was indeed the father. Elvis immediately established a trust fund for the child's education and ongoing support, and he maintained regular contact with Sandra and their son for the rest of his life. Perhaps more importantly, Elvis's relationship with his son became a source of joy and stability during a period when other aspects of his life were becoming increasingly difficult. Sandra later described Elvis as a loving and attentive father who took his parental responsibilities seriously and who found genuine happiness in spending time with his child whenever his schedule permitted. The incident also had a positive impact on Elvis's relationship with his daughter, Lisa Marie, who was 6 years old at the time of the Sandra Mitchell confrontation. Watching her father handle such a difficult situation with grace and integrity provided Lisa Marie with a powerful example of how to take responsibility for one's actions and treat others with respect and compassion. Elvis's decision to publicly acknowledge his relationship with Sandra and accept responsibility for her pregnancy also influenced how other celebrities approached similar situations. Several high-profile entertainers who found themselves facing paternity claims or other personal scandals in the following years cited Elvis's example as inspiration for handling their own situations with honesty and dignity rather than denial and legal maneuvering. The legacy of the Sandra Mitchell incident extends far beyond its immediate impact on Elvis's life and career. The way Elvis handled that confrontation on stage in Las Vegas became a template for how public figures might address personal scandals with integrity and compassion, setting a standard that is still referenced today when celebrities face similar challenges. The incident also revealed aspects of Elvis's character that had previously been hidden from the public, demonstrating that behind the glittering jumpsuits and larger-than-life stage persona was a man capable of genuine empathy and moral courage. The fact that he made his decision to support Sandra and accept responsibility for their child in front of 20,000 witnesses, rather than in private where he could have controlled the narrative, showed a level of authenticity that was rare among celebrities of his stature. In the years since Elvis's death, the story of his confrontation with Sandra Mitchell has been studied by crisis management experts, entertainment industry professionals, and scholars of celebrity culture as an example of how personal integrity can actually enhance rather than damage a public figure's reputation. The incident demonstrated that audiences are often more forgiving of human mistakes when they are handled with honesty and accountability. Sandra Mitchell, who remained largely out of the public eye after the initial media attention, has spoken occasionally about her experience with Elvis and its impact on her life. She has consistently described Elvis as a man who kept his word and who treated her and their son with respect and generosity throughout the remainder of his life. Her son, who is now in his 50s, has chosen to maintain his privacy, but has occasionally acknowledged the positive influence his father had on his life despite their limited time together. The Sandra Mitchell incident also contributed to changes in how the entertainment industry handles relationships between celebrities and fans. The protocols that Elvis established for addressing serious personal matters became a model that other major entertainers adopted, and his emphasis on taking responsibility for the consequences of celebrity behavior influenced industry standards for decades. Perhaps most importantly, the incident illustrated the potential for public figures to use their platforms for positive social impact, even when addressing their own personal failures. Elvis's willingness to discuss issues of responsibility, respect, and compassion in the context of his own mistakes provided a powerful example of how celebrities might contribute to broader cultural conversations about morality and personal conduct. Today, the story of Elvis and Sandra Mitchell serves as a reminder that moments of crisis can become opportunities for growth and positive change, both for individuals and for society as a whole. Elvis's decision to handle a potentially devastating personal scandal with grace and integrity not only protected the people involved, but also provided a lasting example of how public figures might use their influence to promote better treatment of others. What do you think about Elvis's decision to address Sandra's pregnancy claim so publicly and directly? Have you ever seen a celebrity handle a personal scandal with such honesty and accountability? Share your thoughts in the comments below. The confrontation between Elvis and Sandra Mitchell reminds us that behind every public figure is a human being capable of both mistakes and redemption. The way Elvis chose to handle that difficult moment on stage in Las Vegas showed that true character is revealed not by avoiding problems, but by facing them with honesty, compassion, and a commitment to doing the right thing regardless of the personal cost. If this incredible story of responsibility and redemption moved you, please subscribe for more untold stories about the moments that revealed the true character of music's greatest legends. Hit that notification bell and share this video with someone who understands that the most powerful examples of leadership often come from how people handle their most difficult challenges.